أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وآله الطاهرين. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to another episode of A Drop from the Sea. Inshallah, we will continue with our entries on our ulama. We have reached entry number 13 in this book. Entry number 13 is about a scholar. His name is Sayyid Muhammad Fasharki. Sayyid Muhammad Fasharki died in 1316 Hijri, which is around 1898. He lived from 1837 to 1898. And just, a point about Sayyid Muhammad Fasharki. Fasharak is a small town or small village near in the province of Isfahan. So he's from that village, and hence why the name Fasharki. After Mirza Shirazi, who we covered in entry number 11, the Hausa approached Sayyid Muhammad Fasharki and offered him to take on the role of the marja'iyah of the entire Shia community, and he didn't accept it. Okay, it's well known that he didn't accept the marja'iyah, and the reason that he gave was that knowledge alone isn't enough to take a role of marja'iyah, which is also slightly, not slightly, but there's a political aspect to it. There is an aspect of managing people and the community and managing their affairs, and not everyone, just because somebody is very knowledgeable doesn't necessarily mean just because they're very knowledgeable in fiqh and usul and can give a fatwa doesn't necessarily mean that they can be really good managers as well, and people who can manage the community. So he didn't accept it, and instead he said give it to Muhammad Taqi Shirazi. So the marja'iyah went to Muhammad Taqi Shirazi. Now this entry is a very small entry, it's one page. I believe in later volumes Sayyid Shubayri Zanjani will bring his entry again and we'll quote some other stories. But this is a story that he says. He says that I was gone to the house of Haj Agha Murtada Hairi. Agha Murtada Hairi is the son of Ayatullah Hairi Yazdi, and Hairi Yazdi is the founder of the Hausa of Qom. So Ayatullah Zanjani says I was gone to the house of one of his sons, Murtada Hairi, and in his house was Murtada Hairi was visiting his brother's house, Mahdi Hairi. Now Mahdi Hairi Yazdi was also one of the sons of Ayatullah Hairi Yazdi, and you can read up about him. Mahdi Hairi Yazdi eventually traveled to the West, and he specialized in philosophy, and he has one of his books he wrote one of his books in English about knowledge by presence, which is published and you can find it online. So anyways, he was basically at his house. He says that the brother of Sayyid Hussein Hairi, who was famously known as Sayyid Ali Hairi Shabagh, was also present there. Okay, meaning the brother of Sayyid Hussein Hairi. Okay, so this is not Sayyid Hussein Hairi is nothing to do with this Hairi Yazdi. Okay, this is a different Sayyid Hussein Hairi. His brother Sayyid Ali Hairi, who was known as Shabagh, was also present there, and so look, Ayatollah Zanjani is quoting directly from him now. He says this Shabagh, the Sayyid Ali Hairi, who was known as Shabagh, who was present there, he said that my brother Sayyid Hussein Hairi was gone to our uncle, and so now the uncle basically is Sayyid Muhammad Fasharki. Okay, this was the uncle of these brothers, and he says that the financial situation of my uncle was really, really horrible, so bad that even just plain naan was something that he would struggle to basically purchase, and it would be very difficult for him to be able to afford it. Okay, so Sayyid Muhammad Fasharki, the grand scholar who the Hausa was saying take the marja'iyah, he's saying he was so financially poor that he was unable to even purchase naan, just plain bread for himself. He says during those days, with that sort of a financial situation, the mother of Aga Khan Mahallati, this Aga Khan Mahallati is basically Aga Khan. Okay, I will show you. Actually, let me pull it up right now. So Aga Khan, we're talking about this Aga Khan, the first ever Aga Khan. Okay, Aga Khan meaning so at that time he was the governor of Kirman, and is considered to be the 46th Imam of the Ismaili Muslims, the Nizari Ismaili Muslim. and he is the first one to hold the title of Aga Khan. Okay, his mother. So he was born in Kahak. Kahak is the same village on the outskirts of Qom, where Mullah Sadra was, exiled, and Mullah Sadra lived there in his house. Mullah Sadra's house is still there, actually. I've seen, visited the house. So his mother, his mother is the one we're referring to. That the mother of Aga Khan Mahallati at that time was doing some research, trying to figure out who is the most learned scholar in Najaf or amongst the Shia, who's the most a'lam. And people told the mother that Sayyid Muhammad Fasharki is the most famous, most well learned, or most learned scholar. So the mother gifted 3 abas that were made in Na'in. Okay, so these abay Na'ini. So Na'in is a small town. When I believe I was coming back from either Yazd or Shiraz, and I drove through Na'in. It's a very nice, beautiful small town. And Ayatullah Na'ini, Mirza Na'ini, these guys are from that village or town. Anyway, so these 3 abas that were made in Na'in, and they're very high quality. She gifted these 3 abas to him, as well as 10,000 tomans. Okay, 10,000 toman in money. So there's like an interjection that Ayatollah Zanjani is putting here. He's saying that Sayyid Muhammad Fasharki died in 1316 Hijri, and Mu'irul Mamalik is basically this man right here they're talking about. He is from the children or the family of Nasiruddin Shah Qajar, from the Qajar dynasty. Okay, from the Qajar dynasty. So this guy, so Ayatollah Zanjani is not interjecting. This is basically still the words of the Shahbagh. Okay, he says that at that time I heard from Mu'ir al-Mamalik that Nasiruddin Shah, the Qajar king, his entire country's budget was around 3 million tomans at that time. Okay, this is in around the time of Sayyid Muhammad Fasharki. Nasiruddin Shah Qajar was from 1831 to 1896. Okay, so 1896, this is the same time as Agha Fasharki. And so 3 million toman. So 10,000 toman for someone like the scholar was a lot. It's a big amount, 10,000 tomans. Okay. So he says, even though my uncle could barely afford to buy naan, plain bread, as much as the mother of Agha Khan insisted, Sayyid Muhammad Fasharki did not accept the payment and the gift. Basically, he didn't accept the gift. And then there's a statement that says that these stories about his financial, his poverty or his tough life that he was in is itself a very strange and fascinating story. So this is basically about Agha Sayyid Muhammad Fasharki. He's quoting the story about him. In later volumes, he will bring his entry again, and there will be some other stories about him as well. Okay, so that's about him. Now, if we move to entry number 14, you have Sayyid Murtada Kashmiri. Sayyid Murtada Kashmiri, this Sayyid Murtada Kashmiri died in 1905 Hijri. 1905 in the year 1323 Hijri. Now, this Sayyid Murtada Kashmiri is from one of the students of Hussain Quli Hamadani, which we've already discussed in one of the previous entries. So he's a scholar of, he's very into mysticism and philosophy, and he's in that school of thought. So let's look at some of these stories. So this one is going to be slightly longer. There's about 3 pages. So check this story out. Ayatollah Zanjani says that for Sayyid Murtada Kashmiri, there were some guests that were coming to his house, and when the guests entered, it was necessary for him to take the guests to the guest room. But the door of the room was locked, and he didn't have the keys with him. And then he says that it is well known that if you say the name of the mother of Musa, the doors get unlocked. But my mother, meaning Fatima, is not any less than the mother of Musa. So he said, Ya Fatima, and the door opened up. Okay, so the story is ended over here, but look what Ayatollah Zanjani says after that. He says, I have narrated the story of Sayyid Murtada Kashmiri many times for people, and many people have narrated the same incident happening with them. And he says, in fact, this has happened with me as well. And then he quotes, 4 stories over here. He says, one time I was stuck behind a door, behind my house door, and my family was not at home. And at that time, I had some guests that were coming over, and if the guests had come and I was just stranded outside, it would have been very, very embarrassing for me. So I said, basically didn't have the keys to this house. So I said, Ya Fatima, and the door opened up. And he says something similar to this also happened with my own family. What happened? He says, so this is story number 2. He says, I had guests coming over to my house, and my wife was outside the house, and but the keys were with me. I had the keys, and my wife was also out. And the plan was that I would reach home first, and then my wife would reach first. Okay, but I forgot to go home, and I totally forgot about it. And my wife reached home before me, and she was just stranded outside the door. Because the guests were quickly arriving, she remembered the story of Sayyid Murtada Kashmiri, and she said, Ya Fatima, and she pushed the door. And it almost felt like somebody was behind the door opening the door for her, and the door opened up. Then he says, my elder brother Haj Agha Ibrahim has also said that I had the key to my house was broken one time, and the door was not opening up. We tried for a long time, 15-20 minutes, 45 minutes, we kept waiting, we kept trying to open the door, and the door did not open up. And I remembered the story of Sayyid Murtada Kashmiri, and I said, Ya Fatima, and I pushed the door, and the door actually opened up. Then he says, 4th story, Haj Sayyid Mehdi Ruhani had gone to the house of Agha Ahmadi Miyanji, and the key to the cabinet, which has all of the plates and utensils, a lot of these houses in South Asia and Iran, those countries, they have these fancy cabinets to put the plates and the trays in there, and then some of them they lock the cabinet. So this is one of those cabinets. So the key, so the cabinet was locked, and basically he wanted to serve the guests, but he couldn't open the cabinet, and the key was lost. So Agha Ruhani said, Ya Fatima bint Muhammad, O Fatima, daughter of Muhammad, and he pushed the door a little bit, and the door basically opened up. All of these stories he is telling them on the 16th of Ramadan, 1428 Hijri, except story number 1, which was his own story where he said, I said, Ya Fatima, that was on the 25th of Ramadan, 1429 Hijri. So that was on 2 different dates altogether. So, that was an interesting story. So he says, so the next entry is about the death of Sayyid Murtada Kashmiri. He says, Sayyid Murtada Kashmiri passed away in 1323 Hijri. I don't remember the day and the month that he passed away, but I do remember that on that same day, Sheikh Muhammad Taha, one of the famous Arab jurists of the Hausa, had also passed away, and both of them died on the same day. One of them died in the day, and one of them died at the end of the day. So they both passed away on the same day. So, but he said, I don't remember the day and the month. Okay, what about his burial? He says, I heard from Haj Sayyid Sadruddin Jazairi, and he told me that Agha Sayyid Murtada Kashmiri used to say, I really want to get buried in Najaf, but it doesn't seem like my dua is going to get accepted, because he was in Baghdad. And Haj Sayyid Sadruddin said that this is exactly what happened. He passed away in Baghdad or Qadimain, Baghdad or some other place, that's how it says. And they brought his janaza, so they wanted to bring his janaza to Najaf, but when they reached Karbala first, and they said that the sort of the sacredness of Karbala didn't allow them to take the janaza of Sayyid Murtada Kashmiri out of Karbala and bury him in Najaf. So out of respect of Karbala, they essentially buried him in Karbala, and he's buried there basically. Okay, so that's another story that he tells over here. The last story he tells of Sayyid Murtada Kashmiri is from Sayyid Hassan Shirazi. Sayyid Hassan Shirazi is the grandson of Mirza Shirazi and the father-in-law of Ayatullah Sistani. He says, as Agha Sayyid Abbas Lari, he says, I'm narrating from Sayyid Abbas Lari, who said that Sayyid Murtada Kashmiri whenever he would be afflicted with any troubles or problems, he would recite this dua, and he would also recommend this dua. The dua is basically يا من إذا تضايقت الأمور فتح لها بابا لم تذهب إليه الأوهام صل على محمد وآل محمد وافتح لأمور المتضايقة بابا لم يذهب إليه وهم يا ارحم الراحمين. So that is the dua that he would read. So Ayatullah Zanjani said that this dua is attributed to Imam Mahdi alayhi salam, that this dua is recorded in Qisasul Anbiya of Rawandi, page 360. And he says that although in the recording of Rawandi, instead of salli, it says fa salli. So he says there's a little bit of a description, difference in the script. But he says Murtada Kashmiri, the way he says it, salli ala Muhammad, he says that is the correct way of reciting it. He says Agha Mujtaba, my nephew, has also recorded and reported this story from the children and the grandchildren of Sayyid Murtada Kashmiri, and they have said that Sayyid Murtada Kashmiri would also say that this dua is from one of the inspirations from Imam al-Hujjah, and some of them have also said that he would say, like Sayyid Abbas Lari said that he also, some people have also said that Sayyid Murtada Kashmiri will say that this dua is from Baqiyatullah. So this is attributed to Imam Mahdi alayhi salam. So if anybody wants to recite this dua, I will put it in the description. يا من إذا تضايقت الأمور فتح لها بابا لم تذهب إليه الأوهام صل على محمد وآل محمد وافتح لأمور المتضايقة بابا لم يذهب إليه وهم يا ارحم الراحمين. Inshallah, I will put this dua in the description. So that is all for today's episode. Inshallah, in the next session we will talk about Hakim Jahangir Khan Qashqai and the one and only, for the very famous scholar, Akhund Khurasani. And Akhund Khurasani is a pretty lengthy chapter, so that one episode will be enough for him, inshallah. I'll see you all in the next episode of A Drop from the Sea. Don't forget to share, like, comment, and subscribe as well. Make sure you share this to other people. And if you're a member, you're already watching this very much earlier. If you're a non-member, you're probably watching this, maybe a month or two later. But anyways, if you want to get earlier access to this, feel free to subscribe as a member. Inshallah, I'll see you all later. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.